If you're into building electric guitars, you should stick around. We're in the process of building a guitar inspired by Jimmy Page's Dragon Telecaster. I'm going through the build step by step using the simplest tools and techniques so you can follow along and build a guitar yourself. So stay with me. Let's build a guitar. Hi, I'm Yoav and this is the Electric Luthier. Today we'll continue the build of a Tele style guitar we started in the first part of the series. We've already got our templates, created a laminated neck, routed for the truss rod, roughly shaped the neck, and slotted the fretboard. Today we'll glue that fretboard to the neck and get busy creating the body, so let's jump into it. The fretboard is now ready to be glued to the neck. Remember that in these double action truss rods, the flat side needs to face up in order for the adjustment direction to match the standard. Insert the truss rod into the slot and double check it's flush and not sticking out even a bit. If it's a bit loose in the slot, you can roll up a little bit of masking tape just to avoid it from temporarily rattling, and stick it in there. Once the truss rod is adjusted for relief, the pressure will avoid any motion. Now cover the slot and the truss rod with masking tape to avoid too much glue getting into the slot. The truss rod is sleeved, so it should not really make a difference other than in the nut area. Now generously apply glue and remove the tape. Funny thing, only when I was editing this video I noticed that I actually forgot to remove the tape itself. Well, fortunately I used very thin strip of masking tape, so the loss of gluing surface is minimal. Oh well, I make these mistakes so you don't have to. Positioning the fretboard is critical, and if your fretboard is not completely square with the neck, like mine is, always refer back to your center line. Find your center line, mark it on both the neck and the fretboard, and line them up. It's very easy on the laminated neck. I like to add pieces of softer wood at the top and to the bottom to protect it from the clamps and to more evenly spread the pressure. Once you start applying pressure, you should be aware of possible slippage, especially if you were generous with the glue, and you should be. One option is to first clamp it dry and insert small pins through the slots, one in the high frets and one at the low end. You need to drill a very thin, like 1 millimeter or 1/16 of an inch, through the slot into the neck. You then insert a matching pin to prevent the sideways motion. It could be wood or metal, doesn't really matter. You push it deep enough so it'll be lower than the slot and will be covered by the fret. A second option, which I'm using here, is to lightly put pressure on the first two clamps, let some glue spill out, and correct the position if there was any motion. Now slowly tighten it a bit and wait until it becomes tacky and tight enough for the motion to stop. Then just tighten the first two clamps and add the rest of them. The more the merrier. Everybody puts more clamps and applies more pressure than is actually necessary. And I'll probably do the same. It should be dry after a few hours, even according to the manufacturer. But I like to leave it overnight just in case. And once dry, the fretboard can be trimmed. This time, I'll convert the router to a table version. Simply remove the plate and screw on a wider one that fits upside down in the table. There are several designated aluminum plates which will fit most routers, but I just made my own. It should be upgraded soon though. I'll be using a template copier bit, but with the bearing at the tip, as I'm using the neck itself to shape the fretboard. I can now also sand and round that fretboard headstock connection where the truss rod adjustment will later be. I'll be using my improvised spindle sander for that. The heel of the neck can now be cut and sanded as well. It's a straight cut with rounded corners, and it's now ready to get fitted to the pocket in the body. Did I mention that clicking on the subscribe button and the notification bell will encourage me to make more of these videos? And if you want much more information on guitar building, check out my website, theelectricluthier.com, where you'll find articles and much more. For the body, I have a nice piece of poplar, which people like putting down, but it has a nice line flow that I feel fits the spirit of the original one. When it comes to solid bodies, you can use a wide variety of wood types and stay true to the spirit of the original guitar. And I think poplar should do just a fine job. This will be a 2-piece body, but it could be a 3-piece just as well. The key to gluing the parts together is having a straight angle with smooth edges on both sides. No need to smooth it too much. It'll actually bond better if sanded with lower grits. General carpenter's glue with a few clamps will do the job. Again, I'll leave it overnight, and once dried, we go back to the template. First, we do the outline. I'll trace it to the glued blank. I'm not keeping the center line where the gluing line is, just to let the wood texture show better. I'll cut it as tight as possible and then attach the template for routing the outline. Since I'm holding it down with the clamp anyway for stability, I skipped taping it at all and actually put in a screw where the neck pocket will be routed later. You can even notice some very stubborn double-sided tape left over on the template, giving me a hard time. I should have used another template. I'm using my trimmer router here with a short template copier bit, which will be switched to a longer one for the second route. After the first pass, I can lose the template and use the routed part to guide the bearings. If I give it a light sanding before the next pass, that will carry the smoothness to my next route as well. The same goes for the third pass, where I'll use an even longer bit. If you're using a stronger router or a table router, you can just do it in one pass. But this goes to show you that a trimmer router costing under $100 can still get the job done. After some light sanding, we're ready for the cavities. I will again trace the template to the body, marking all the cavities, and it is advised to pre-drill the majority of the material, even if you have a strong plunge router. You can use drill bits to get those tight corners, which may actually be smaller than the router bit. I try to use a Forstner drill bit with a depth stop whenever possible. This will give me the cleanest hole. If I don't have the right diameter, I'll put a tape on the drill to show me the depth. I try to drill just a hair less than the depth I'll route to. That way the router will easily give the final smooth finish at the bottom of the routed area. When all the pre-drilling is done, I'll attach or clamp the template again and route the rest of the cavities. I skip the diagonal slot that is supposed to connect the neck pickup cavity to the pots, as I'll bypass it with the drill through the bridge pickup cavity. If there are any cracks, dents, or anything else that needs filling, now is the time to do it, as it will need time to dry before sanding. At this point, the body gets a thorough sanding. I'll try to cover as much as I can with the orbital sander and the spindle sander for the cutouts. I start at 100 grit and work my way up to 400 and sometimes even 600. Depending how sharp you want your edges to remain, you should probably not touch them with the lower grits, and definitely only sand them manually. I started sanding the edges lightly with a 240 grit and up. I like it to be fairly round and smooth. The neck pocket is up next. This is a good opportunity to get the body and the neck together with the bridge, the scratch plate, and position the neck to match our scale length. I first measure it and clap my ruler to see that there are actually 25.5 inches or 648 millimeters from the bridge to the nut. You can also measure the distance from the 12th fret to the nut. The distance from the 12th fret to the bridge should be the same and half the scale length. I clamp the ruler to the neck so I can move it around and position it. Once I find the distance, I mark it. After we position it and know the distance is right, we want to make sure that the neck also follows the center line and aligns with the bridge. I take two long straight edges and put them along the two edges of the neck. When they align with the bridge and they all align with the center line, I clamp the neck to the body. This is where I want the neck to sit. I'll now take 3 pieces of MDF or any other material which has smooth straight edges, and using the old masking tape and super glue method, I attach them to the body. I then remove the neck and voila! I have a perfectly tailored single-use template. As an extra measure, I also tape 1 layer of masking tape on the inner edges of the MDF for a tighter fit. This will make my routing just a hair even smaller. My neck is 29 millimeters thick with the fretboard included, and I want 9 millimeters to be above the body. With my thick fretboard, that'll leave essentially just the rosewood outside the body. So I should route 20 millimeters from the body and pre-drill it just a hair less. I adjust the stopper on my drill bit and pre-drill to remove as much material as I can. I then calculate the depth for the router and include the thickness of my template and route the pocket. Sweet! Great fit! Now I'm thinking I should have put another layer of masking tape on the inside of the pocket just to make it that much tighter. Now we get to the artistic part, the dragon designs. I printed out an outline I created from pictures of Jimmy Page's old Telecaster. I'm using carbon paper to copy the outlines to the body, and I then started filling in the lines with acrylic paint just like Jimmy did back in the days. I even got my daughter to pitch in. I figured small hands would work for small details. Fender actually came out with the signature series for this exact model, which was actually a guitar Jimmy Page received from Jeff Beck just before Led Zeppelin was born. It was actually used quite a lot in Zeppelin's earlier recordings, but I'm not getting into that part. The guitar was originally flat painted white and received a very different treatment with mirrors before Jimmy got inspired, stripped it down to bare wood, and hand painted the dragon. He even hand painted some of the guitars Fender lately came out with. I'm trying to maintain the hand painted feel. As it turns out, Jimmy Page is not only a far better guitar player than I am, he's also better with a brush. Once the paint is dry, there are a few more steps we need to take before clear coating it. The first is the hole for the jack. I have the original type of flat square one, but I got this nice one which is less obtrusive to the look and shape of the body. I'll be using a 24mm bit for the rim and a 22mm bit for the body and depth. This one needs to reach the cavity where the pots and switches are. Ideally, the body would be clamped upright and I would use a drill press. Please do that if you have a drill press large enough. I'll settle for clamping down the body and carefully hand drilling it. It doesn't matter what type of guitar you're thinking of building. At some point, you're going to be needing a really long wood drill bit. I'm going to drill through both pickup cavities coming from the neck pocket. This will allow me to bypass the channel I skipped when routing the cavities. So the wiring from the neck pickup will be threaded to the bridge pickup, and now I will also drill the one from the bridge cavity to the switches. The bridge needs to be positioned, and we will require two sets of holes. One set will hold the bridge plate itself to the body. I'll verify the position of the bridge, which we previously checked when we positioned the neck. I'll also verify it in relation to the center line. Since we have 3 sandals, the middle one should align in the center line. These just need to be pre-drilled for the screws. The other set is a bit more complex. We need to drill from the front to the back and maintain perfectly parallel and evenly spaced holes in the back as well. The holes in the back should also be large enough to fit the string furls. For starters, I'll mark the position of the holes in the front side. The best solution by far for this is first of all to use a drill press. With a good one, you should be able to drill right through with a thin pilot drill and come out in perfect order on the other side. Since my drill press does not have a long enough arm to reach the desired area, I will drill through just the first and last holes, and then from the back align and mark the rest of the holes. To get even more accurate results, I could have used the bridge itself as a template from the back side. After you have the pilot holes from both front and back nicely aligned, you can now drill the back side with full diameter of the furls. They should fit snugly, but there's no need to over squeeze them as I did. That may cause the rim of the hole to tear a little, and the strings are going to hold them tightly in place anyway. Last and not least are the holes for the screws for the back plate and the neck. I found this Fender Custom Shop neck plate that I just couldn't resist. When I positioned it, I saw that a bit of filing is also needed for the tips of the body, so I filed it and sanded it to better match the corners of the plate. Then I marked the position of the holes with a pen, and I used the spring-loaded marker as well. It gives a nice little dent for the drill to get started with. I'm going to be using these holes for holding the body when clear coating it as well. After drilling the holes, I'll connect it to the attachment which will allow to support it and rotate it for spray painting. The body is ready for clear coating, and we are ready to go back and continue work on the neck. Join me in the next part where we will finish the neck dots and do some serious fretting. Until then, if you want more information about building guitars, articles, and more, make sure you subscribe, Check out the links below and come visit us at theelectricluthier.com.